Good evening, everybody. I'd like to call this evening's meeting of the Edgewood Town Council to order. The first item on the agenda this evening is the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States
of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I salute the flag of the state of New Mexico and the Zia symbol of perfect friendship among united cultures. Thank you, everyone. Before we get started with the agenda, I would like to ask us all to observe a few moments of silence prior to getting started, to show some respect and to honor three men who have died recently in our community. Two who have meant an awful lot to our town and to the East Mountain area in general, and one who has served the state of New Mexico and all of its citizens with great honor and courage. First, former State Senator James White, who died suddenly in mid-January. He served his country as a member of the Air Force, served our state and our community, first as a state representative and then as a state senator. Next, Art Swenka, who passed away last week. He was one of the founders of the Estancia Basin Resource Association. He helped to create Torrance County's public radio station and was an avid volunteer and a good friend. Finally, New Mexico State Police Officer Darren Jarrett, who was shot and killed in the line of duty during a traffic stop on I-10 near Deming last week. I think I can safely say we're all shocked, heartbroken, and enraged by the loss of this officer. Please join me now in a minute of silence, contemplation, prayer, reflection, and honor their memories. Thank you all. Tonight, before we approve the agenda, I have a couple of things. There were a few typos on this agenda that I would like to correct before I call for a motion. The first is item Q. Item Q is ordinance number 2021-01. And the meeting will be on March 10th, 2021. That's one correction. The second correction is on the second page of tonight's agenda. Item E on the second page, so that would be item 4E. This will be the quasi-judicial public hearing, and it's an application for a zone change of 5 lots. One lot is R2. The other 4 lots are R1. So they are all being changed to agricultural. And just wanted to note it's still 5 lots, but one is a 2-acre lot and the rest are 1s. So with those 2 changes, I'll entertain a motion to approve this evening's agenda.
Mr. Mayor, I have a question, a comment I would like to see. Could we move public comment up to the discussion items area, either before or after matters from council, since they are all discussion items rather than action? It's down kind of near the action item.
Do I hear that? Do I hear a motion? Do I hear a motion on approval of the agenda first?
I move to approve tonight's agenda
Do I
with
hear?
the typographical corrections that you had recommended.
Thank you. Do I hear a second?
Second, with the change that I asked for?
Okay, Counselor, if you want to make a motion to move that agenda item, I think we can, but have a motion to move it. I would like to hear from the counselors whether they want to move it or not. Do I hear that motion?
Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, I would make a motion to move item 5 up to public comment, up to discussion item number 3, either before matters from councilors or after matters from council.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Okay. Counselor Abraham, how do you vote on this?
Aye.
And Counselor Holly?
Aye.
And Counselor Jaramillo?
Aye.
We have 3 votes in the affirmative to move item 5. I'm still not sure by that motion where we move item 5.
We can put it after consent agenda?
I suppose we can do that. So
And
with,
then I did also have another addition. Well, first, the clarification that is this our redo of last week's meeting?
if you will notice, counselors, all of the items in the consent agenda are the identical ones from last week's meeting. When we get to discussing the consent agenda, we can talk about that further.
Okay, and I'm just wondering about that because of the beginning of the meeting was different last time with the censure that Sherry read. So I didn't know what we need to do about that.
Well, Counselor, you know, we've moved an item in the agenda. We've got a motion and a second to approve the changes to the agenda and tonight's agenda. And I think we should move forward, and I will call for a vote. Counselor Jaramillo.
So the first thing that I had was a clarification, and then the second thing was a motion to add matters from the clerk, because I do have some questions. So I'll make a motion to add matters from the clerk as right before action.
I'll second that motion.
Well, I can let you know right now that the clerk treasurer is not in the house this evening. The deputy clerk is here in his stead. And that brings up something else that I omitted, but I will wait until we actually vote on this and move forward. I'd actually called for the vote, but since Councilor Jaramillo has asked for this other item, I'll ask for a vote on it, I guess. Councilor Jaramillo, how do you vote?
Aye.
Councilor Abraham.
Aye.
Councilor Holly.
Since our clerk treasurer is not in attendance tonight, I'll vote nay.
And I'll also vote nay. That motion dies for lack of a majority. And now I will ask for a vote on approval of this evening's agenda with the moving of item 5 in front of item 3 and the 2 typographical connection, or the 3 typographical corrections. Councilor Abraham.
Aye.
Councilor Holly.
Aye.
Councilor Jaramillo.
Aye.
And I vote aye as well. The item that I mentioned while we were going through this exercise was I did not call roll, but I will allow that Counselor, that I am here, and Counselor Holly, are you present?
Present.
Counselor Jaramillo
I'm present.
and Counselor Abraham.
I am also present.
We also have the deputy clerk present, the town's attorney present. We also have the chief of police present. And as you can see from on the screen, we also have planning and zoning. Both Tanya Mortensen and Tim Dvorak are online as well. Moving forward, we need a motion to approve this evening's consent agenda.
Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, I make a motion to approve the consent agenda, removing item B as an invalid meeting and asking for discussion on items M, N, and Q. Also, I believe some changes in the language are needed in item D.
Okay, so I hear a motion. Do I hear a second?
I will second and would move to also pull out item J for discussion.
I accept that amendment to my motion.
We have a motion and a second. Counselors, I'll call for a vote. Counselor Holly?
I have to vote nay. I don't believe item B was an invalid meeting.
Counselor Jaramillo?
Aye.
And Counselor Abraham?
Aye.
Well, we've got 1 for, and 2 against. I don't believe that item B was an invalid meeting at all either. I don't have a problem pulling it out for discussion. I mean, it's been since November. We actually did have a meeting. I think all counselors would agree there was a meeting. Because there was a meeting and because there were decisions in that meeting, we need to approve the minutes of that meeting. That recording is that recording. I realize it was a contentious meeting, as have been many. Therefore, I will vote aye to approve, and we will pull out item B, D, J, M, N, and Q. Moving forward, what exactly can we do with item B, counselors?
I think we need to discuss the fact that Mayor Bassett has been removed by a judgment and should not have been chairing that meeting. The other part that I have a problem with was the decisions that were made that he voted on. I believe most of those decisions should have died for lack of a majority.
Counselor, I'm sorry that you disagree with what happened in that meeting. However, the minutes of that meeting are the minutes of that meeting, and therefore are the record of this council. You can't invalidate that by simply saying that it didn't happen. We were all there. So, and it's been November, and as far as I can tell right now, it is February. It's unfortunate that it's taken this long to have this discussion, but I haven't seen any edits from anyone for this meeting. And I would move that we accept council meeting minutes for November 2nd, 2020. Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Councilor Jaramillo, how would you vote on this?
I think we need to have a discussion.
Okay.
So that would go first to you, then to Holly, since you made the motion in the second.
Councilor Holly, do you wish to speak to this?
I'm in agreement with what the Mayor Pro Tem said. We had the meeting, the attorney was there. He said there was no problem with Mayor Bassett chairing the meeting, and so I have no arguments against accepting these minutes. It did happen, and that's the recording of what happened on that date.
For discussion for E, you were done, Councilor Holly, just making sure.
Yes.
Okay, all right, I didn't want to interrupt you. So a couple of things here. It wasn't a legally called meeting because there wasn't an agreement as to calling the meeting and the agenda items. And having a member of the governing body, in this case the former mayor, participating in the meeting while not even legally part of the governing body makes that an illegal meeting as well. So I would argue that, just as I don't think we have minutes here from last week's meeting, do we? That meeting was illegal. And so in principle, you can't approve minutes for an illegal meeting. And there were a lot of things in the content as well that I did not agree with, but I knew we couldn't approve a meeting as happening when it was illegal. As far as the attorney, I would say, as legal matters go, the judge has higher authority than an attorney, right? So what the judge said was what she said, and that was the truth of the matter, was that he was not a member of the governing body at that time. So I cannot support voting for minutes for an illegal meeting. Now, if the recording is on record, that's fine. We probably have the recording from last week on record as well. But I just can't see approving minutes as a valid legal meeting when it's not. And with that, I yield the floor.
Okay, my discussion is very similar. It was chaired by someone who had been removed from office. The other part of that were the person who had been removed from office also voted to break ties. So if you cannot be a member of the governing body, you cannot vote to break a tie. Therefore, anything that was on there would have died for lack of majority had it been a valid meeting chaired by yourself, as I requested at the beginning of that meeting. Therefore, I also will vote nay to approve these minutes.
Since Councilor Abraham has voted, Councilor Jaramillo, how do I hear your vote?
Nay.
Councilor Holly?
Aye.
And I would vote aye. Motion to approve meeting minutes for November 2nd, 2020 fails for lack of majority. Item D, council meeting minutes for January 13th, 2021. Councilor Abraham, you had said that you wanted to provide the council with additional items, also wanted to add a reference to her being removed. I believe If you have reviewed what is before you, you will see that those things have been modified and added. And if you are satisfied with that, I would ask that you move to approve the council meeting minutes for January 13th, 2021.
Mayor Pro Tem, I did realize that there was an action missing from here, and that was my point of order that died for lack of a second, because I stated this wasn't a quasi-judicial situation. It was not in violation of OMA, or, there's no statute or law preventing Councilor Abraham to attend that closed session. So I did make that point of order that I think should be on the record, that it just died for lack of second, since it was a motion, and my reasoning for that. And with that, I'm fine with the rest.
So you wish to have these meeting minutes pulled and reviewed yet again? Is that your motion, Councilor Jaramillo?
No, I can make a motion now if that pleases the council. I could say just to add in the point of order action and comments that I made, and that it died for lack of a second. And with that, that's my motion for approval with that change. My comments, and just adding my motion for point of order, and that Sherry could attend the closed session, and that it died for lack of second.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Councilors, how do you vote? Councilor Holly?
Aye.
Councilor Jaramillo?
Aye.
Councilor Abraham?
Aye.
Motion passes. Council meeting minutes for January 13th with the amendments as mentioned moves forward. Item J, Road Department report for the months of September, October, November, December 2020.
So I did want to thank the Road Department Director for the reports and the updates. And I did just want to ask when we could hear from him personally. And also during the budget meeting, you may recall that we had agreed after the first quarter to address using some extra cash balance for maybe just some maintenance and gravel and things like that, as long as our GRT was healthy after the first quarter. And we were also going to hear from bond counsel just for information, right? And our clerk had stated he would have bond counsel come present information to us, just for some long range planning purposes. But more immediate, there were so many requests for road maintenance that I felt it was important for us to hear from the director. So I still would like that.
Are there any other comments or compliments?
I would just like to say yes. I had also complimented the new road maintenance director on the information provided to us on these forms. We're getting a lot more detailed information. We can kind of see what roads are being maintained, where our money is being spent, and for that I appreciate his efforts. And I emailed him to say so.
Thank you, councilors. If no one has anything else to add, I would move to accept the road department reports from the months of September through December 2020. And ask for a second.
I'll second.
Thank you, Thank you, Councilor Holly. Councilor Abraham, how would you vote?
Aye.
Councilor Jaramillo?
Aye.
Councilor Holly?
Aye.
We have approved the road department reports for the months of September through December. And I'm told that our road department manager, director, will be in attendance at our next meeting.
Thank you.
Next is item M, the wastewater report for the third quarter of 2020.
Actually, M and M go together. We now have 6 months of reports that I have been promised. If you look at the October 14th minutes that we approved, it indicated we would have a wastewater operator here to talk to us at the end of the third quarter. It is now past the end of the fourth quarter and we still haven't heard from him. We have multiple issues with our wastewater plant. I would like to request once again that he be here to explain how are we putting out more effluent than we're taking in every month. I would like explanations of the numbers that keep going up. And even though we had bought new cassettes and new membranes and put them in, and we're still having problems keeping the wastewater levels within our permits. I would like a status update on our permit, which should have been reissued in September and still has not even been called for public hearing. And there's just a myriad of concerns. I mean, when I talked to Juan in the meeting of December 23rd, he said Mr. Hall had 2.5 months left on his contract and that the town will be issuing an RFP for professional services that I still have not seen. I would like the opportunity to have Mr. Hall present at a meeting that we could get some answers on what is the condition of our wastewater plant. Are we ever going to be able to stop paying for water for the roads from our hydrants so that we have water that is clean enough to put on our roads? And my other concern is that if it's not clean enough to put on the roads, why are we spewing millions of gallons into the air? And those are things I need to know before I can approve these 6 months worth of reports.
Is there any other comment?
No.
Councilor Jaramillo?
Yes. I did also have questions about the RFP for the screens and grit removal and, you know, of course, wanting to hear from the operator himself. I thought his last presentation was very helpful, and it would be nice to hear from him since he is an expert in this area. Also, I had a call from the community concerned about the smell of the water being put on the road again, only this time of different community members. And so I'm wondering if the water tanks were cleaned out from last time. Maybe there was that sludge or something, but I'm not really sure. And the person said that I think it was Carla, had said that it was an F-Corp problem, but I seriously doubt that. It's you know, gotta be either they used the water from the sewer plant, or that the tank itself was smelling, because it was not spraying water at that moment on one of the occasions. It was just the truck itself. So that's just, you know, definitely something to check into to make sure that we're not spreading any E. coli or anything else on the roads with these tanks. And so that was my other question, and I would like to get back to the community member on that. Let's see. As far as, yeah, curious about the permit as well. I think Sherry kind of covered a lot of the questions that were in. So that's all I have on that topic.
Although, counselors, I don't have answers for all of your questions, I do have answers for several. One is that at this time of year, it has been a regular practice to pump the pond down. So the fact that there is more leaving the pond than is coming into it is normal. That is to keep us within spec, if you will. We are to maintain 2 feet of board between the water height and the top of the retention pond. And it is normal practice to pump more out at this time of year because of inclement weather and precipitation. Also at this time of year, there is not nearly as much evaporation from the pond itself. So the evaporation that generally happens does not happen as rapidly this time of year, so it becomes necessary to pump more out than comes in. So there's the answer to your single question, Councilor Abraham. And with regard to your question about the water being used on the roads, that water is coming from a EPCOR hydrant. And there is, I mean, the tanks have been filled and drained and filled and drained many, I don't know how many times, hundreds of times perhaps. And if there is something that smells funny in the hydrant, then that's unfortunate. We can certainly look into EPCOR's water quality and investigate what that smell might have been. But that is not effluent from our plant. It is hydrant water from EPCOR. I am also told, and I was going to mention this in matters later, that we will have Mr. Hall here at, I believe, our next meeting to address the rest of your issues. With that, back to the topic of the wastewater reports. Are we going to approve reports this evening?
Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, I do still have concerns because if you look at the monthly flow data reports in all of these months, the total inlet gallons received and treated is more than the treated effluent queued to the lagoon. So this is what's coming into our plant and going into the lagoon. So it can't have anything to do with evaporation or sprinkling or any of that, because this is coming into our plant and out of our plant. So that's the part I don't understand. This isn't what's been tested in the lagoon. It's treated effluent Q to the lagoon. So that is where my concern is. It's measured before it gets to the lagoon. So, I mean, if he's going to be here and can explain these things, that would be really wonderful. But my concern is I've been promised he will be here before, and then he's not. And as a matter of fact, I mean, his contract's almost up. If he doesn't explain these to us now, we may never have these answers.
Well, Counselor, he will be here at the next meeting. And
Okay.
if the item on our agenda, items M and N, are our concern this evening. If you wish to vote your conscience, please do so. Do I hear a motion to approve the wastewater reports for the third and the fourth quarter of 2020?
Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, I will make a motion to approve the wastewater reports for third and fourth quarter of 2020. And I just want to add, I'm pleased to hear that Mr. Hall will be here. He did a great job last time answering a lot of questions and I think laying a lot of concerns to rest. So these are the reports that he submitted to NMED. I don't see any reason for us not to approve them.
Do I hear a second? Not hearing one, I will second and call for a vote. Counselor Abraham.
Nay.
Counselor Harmio. Again, Counselor Harmio? I did not hear you.
Nay.
Counselor Holly?
Aye.
And I will vote aye as well. Approval of the wastewater reports for the third and fourth quarter of 2020 die for lack of a majority. Item Q.
This one, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, I just wanted to discuss. When I first got this, I was under the impression that we were calling for public hearing on an ordinance when we still hadn't had closed session. So Carla, well, actually, Mr. Czar responded that this is actually calling for public hearing to undo what was done. But I don't think anything was ever done. All we ever did was call for public hearing, and then we never had the public hearing at the meeting that it was supposed to be heard at, so I'm kind of confused as to what are we doing with this.
Well, you've sort of explained it. I will have Mr. Czar comment on that. Mr. Czar,
Are you able to hear me?
can you hear him?
Not very well. Not very well, I can't.
One
If you
moment.
could speak up.
The reason
That's not going to work. Kill that phone. Is that microphone working?
Not sure, can you hear me now?
I mean, just talk right up into it.
Barely.
Can you hear me now?
There we go.
Yes.
All right, the reason that the ordinance that we are asking for a public hearing on the ordinance is the ordinance that was originally introduced to this body at the meeting, I think, of January 13th. Action was not taken on it. And so it's kind of left up in limbo. And so what you need to do is you need to take some sort of action on it. And there has to be the requisite notice. And so you have to basically call for it to be noticed again for a public hearing. At the time that after the public hearing is held, the council takes action on it. The council can either approve it or disapprove it. If the council approves it, then the ordinance becomes effective 45 days after it is adopted, unless a referendum petition is filed with the clerk within roughly 30 days. If the council votes it down, or they're not, and in other words, there have to be 3 votes to pass an ordinance. If there are not 3 votes to pass the ordinance, then basically it's not approved. And at that point, if the council wishes to do something different, such as, and I think we discussed at last week's meeting, putting it up for basically a public bid, then that can be discussed. And the terms of that bid made by the council, and then you would follow the procedure in the statute requiring a bid for a bid. And
Okay.
and so that's the reason for that.
Okay. Mr. Mayor, I have one more question for Mr. Czar. Okay, so we advertised this ordinance with an amount and a buyer in it. In the last packet, there was a blank ordinance, and now we have no ordinance. Which version of this ordinance are we going to call for a public hearing on?
Well, it should be the original ordinance that was before the governing body, not the one that was blank. And as I explained at last week's meeting, you have to have all that information in there in order to have a meaningful public hearing.
Okay, I just needed some clarification because we have no copy of anything in this packet. So thank you for clarifying that.
I'm presuming that the ordinance referred to has an ordinance number.
Yes,
Okay,
it does.
and the other one did not have an ordinance number? The blank one did have an ordinance, but it would have been a different number?
With the same number.
Then it should be then what you should publish should be the original.
We should publish the original.
The original, yes.
Counselor Jaramillo?
Yes, Mayor and Mr. Sauer and Council, I am a little confused because, and I've submitted these questions over the past few weeks and have not received a response, but, you know, I still don't understand how we can call for a public hearing and an ordinance without having a special meeting to a closed session to review the offers and the negotiations. And so I just don't feel comfortable calling for a public hearing for the first ordinance that you mentioned, because that has information for a buyer that we don't really know yet. We've never seen the offers. Full offers. So I still just don't know how we can make a conclusion on one and call for that public hearing when we have had no opportunity to discuss them and see them and decide what action we're going to take. Beyond that, of course, I still have the concern that we've never heard from the public if they ever wanted to sell this building or not. That's, beyond my concern here with the ordinance. I could never get it on the agenda last year. So this just seems very backwards, and I had made the motion and it passed that we were going to have a special meeting, closed session, to discuss all of this before we made a commitment to a buyer in an ordinance.
Well, that does not prohibit the governing body from going through and holding a public hearing on the ordinance that has been introduced. There has been an offer made. The administration has brought it forth. It is made pursuant to a private sale, and the concerns that you express can obviously be translated into your vote, and that could be after. You are going to have a public hearing on that ordinance. At that time, you do get to listen to what the public has to say, and if you feel that there is a better offer, or you think that it should be handled differently, or maybe you think that maybe the town hall shouldn't be sold, you can vote no at that time. You can vote no on the ordinance. And then, unless there's 3 votes, that ordinance is not enacted. And after
Okay, so if I'm understanding this correctly, and thank you, Mr. Czar, it appears this is a matter of procedure, and since we had originally called for the hearing on this particular ordinance, we do need to take action on it. Thank you for clearing that up for me. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Do we have any more discussion regarding item Q? Hearing none, I would ask for a motion to approve item Q, a call for a public hearing on ordinance 2021-01.
Mr. Mayor, make a motion to approve item Q, calling for a public hearing on ordinance number 2021-01 to be heard at the regular council meeting on March 10th, 2021. Actually, that's another typo.
Yeah, I had said that earlier, but
Oh, okay.
do I hear a second?
I'll second.
I heard two people. Was that Councilor Holly or Councilor Jaramillo?
I think Councilor Holly was first.
Okay. I have a motion and a second. Councilor Jaramillo, how do you vote?
Aye.
Councilor Abraham
Aye.
and Councilor Holly?
Aye.
We have approved a call for a public hearing on ordinance number 2021-01. Next item on the...
Mr. Mayor Pro
agenda.
Tem, just point of order. I think you do still have to vote because you are still a counselor.
Well, aye.
Okay. Thank you.
So the next item on the agenda is item 5, public comment. Before we get started with this, because there has been a major cacophony every time we unmute, what I have asked is that our IT person unmute the callers in order, and we will ask your name, and then we will put you on for comment. So currently, I am seeing
She's here for a public hearing.
what looks like 9 callers. So the first caller would be caller number 2, but I'm not sure if that's here. You've got that one?
I think 14.
I think we should start from this one right here.
He's here for the public hearing. He's an applicant.
So
How do they know which caller they are?
they don't. We'll unmute and they should. How do they know?
We just sign up. Just tell them that number.
Okay.
You can see the phone number.
No, they can't, but we have to let them know which number they are. So
What?
you have to cross-reference.
Okay. So let's unmute. Call. Which one do you want to start? Public phone.
Caller 2.
Caller.
Caller 2. Do you want to? Are you in charge of this one, or is this on this one?
I got it right here. I already muted.
Oh, okay. Caller 2, are you there? Everybody speak, and we will see who caller 2 is. I guess that's not going to work. Let's try muting caller 2 and go for caller 3.
This is Sabina Price.
Okay.
Okay.
So
Okay.
we heard Sabina, just so that you others that are muted, we heard Sabina Price.
I'm writing them down.
Okay. You're writing them down? Good. Okay. Caller 4, unmuted. I don't hear anyone. Hello? I don't hear anyone on caller 4. One more time. Okay, go ahead, mute caller 4. Caller 5. Hello, caller 5.
This is Peter Smolinski.
Peter Swolinski. Thank you. Now caller 6. Caller 6. I don't hear anyone. One more time, caller 6. Okay, let's unmute caller 7.
This is Karen Kaiser.
Karen Kaiser. Okay. Next caller would be 8. Caller 8, are you there?
Cheryl Hubbard.
Cheryl Hupperts. Caller 9. Do I hear caller 9? Caller 10. Hello? Caller 10.
This is Linda Burke.
Linda
This is
Burke.
Linda Burke.
Hello, Linda Burke. Caller 11.
This is Martha Eden,
Martha Eden.
and I'd like to donate my minutes to Jerry Powers.
Okay. And there is no caller 12 that I can see. Caller 13 is unmuted. Caller 13.
This is Jerry Powers.
Caller 13 is Jerry Powers. I don't see a caller 14. Caller 15, you're unmuted. Caller 15. Hello. One more time. Caller 15, are you there? If you wish to speak. Okay, not hearing anyone at caller 15. Caller 16. Hello.
Hello, this is Ray Stiggers.
Hello, Ray Seegers.
Hello? Yes. And I would like to give my time to Jerry Powers. I think we'll be covering the same material.
Okay. And caller 17. Caller 17, are you there? I hear nobody at caller 17.
Then we have someone named Danny.
Okay, I see someone named Danny. Danny, do you wish to speak? Would you unmute Danny, please?
I think he muted himself.
Oh, he's muted himself.
He's muted himself. Okay.
Oh, there we
Hey, so it's Danny Rodriguez.
Danny Rodriguez.
Is he an officer?
I'm candidate.
Oh, it sounds like
Yes.
he's the officer.
How are you guys?
Good evening. Thank you for joining us.
No problem. Thank you guys.
And then it looks like you have Brandon Jahasi up top too. I
And,
believe he's one of the applicants. If you scroll up to the top.
yeah, I see Brandon. Brandon, do you want to unmute Brandon?
Good evening, this is Brandon Giossi. Yeah, I'm one of the applicants.
Ah,
I have
okay.
comments on the ordinance at this time.
Thank you for joining us this evening.
Thank you.
There's the number if you want to call him.
Oh, you got the numbers.
Yes.
Beautiful. All right. Okay. So, first on the list this evening is caller number 3, Sabina Price.
Good evening. I would like to reflect on the meeting in January, specifically the portion of the sale of the former town hall building. I want to address Mr. Abrams for having achieved a new low in his public speaking performance by demonstrating disrespectful character traits such as being a chauvinist, a bully, and practicing ongoing harassment in the workplace. You have once again made a mockery of this town council and have every reason to be ashamed of yourself. An apology from you to Mrs. Abrahams is needed, but will not undo the damage you have done. I personally object to your behavior and recommend that legal action is brought against you. Since your voluntary resignation would be most appropriate, I urge you to do so immediately. Otherwise, I would recommend that immediate legal action will be initiated against you for these violations. I politely ask you to resign. As to Mrs. Holly, I cannot understand how you can just stand by and do nothing. It was my observation, Mrs. Holly, that you have condoned and therefore endorsed Mr. Abrams' behavior. That also is unacceptable and disrespectful. Thank you for allowing me to share my concerns.
Thank you, Ms. Price. Next is number 5, Peter Smolinski.
Good evening, members of the Town Council. Just appreciate your service and have a question regarding the ordinance that was approved last year, 2020-01, and if part of the proceedings for considering the new ordinance 2021-01 will be to negate, officially negate that previous ordinance. And I yield my time.
Thank you, Mr. Smolinski. Next is number 7, Karen Kaiser.
Good evening. Thank you all for having the common sense to return public comments to our town meetings. Later in the meeting, you're going to be reviewing the financials for the month of December 2020. And my concern is regarding the lack of legal bills, specifically from Mr. Czar's firm, Robles, Rael, and Anaya. The last time legal bills appeared on your financials was in September. So that means in October, November, and December, when we know there have been enormous billable hours, both in the proceedings before the judge, as well as attendance in our town meetings. Allegedly, the town has received no legal bills. The contract that Edgewood has with Robles, Rael, and Anaya in section 1, subparagraph H, specifically demands that that law firm provides to the town of Edgewood detailed monthly billing. It's just a bad business practice to let bills pile up. We know that we've incurred legal expenses, so I'd like to see that rectified immediately. It's I can't think of any valid reason for it. Perhaps Mr. Czar would be kind enough to take my comment back to his billing staff and see that the town gets the bills for the month of October, November, and December. Unfortunately now, those expenses incurred last year are being dragged into the new year, and I'm sure they have piled up to be quite a large dollar amount. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Kaiser. Next would be number 8. That would be Cheryl Hupperts.
Yes, this is Cheryl Hubbard. I'd like to address my statement to Councilor Jaramillo. She's made comments of how she supports the Blue in council meetings in the past. Yet she has voted against the hiring of Chief Sanchez twice, when he was hired, and when the new police officer he tried to hire a couple meetings ago, along with Councilor Abraham voting also against them. I believe we need to put our trust in our police chief, this Chief Sanchez, for his decisions as he interviews and he checks the recommendations. When we vote against our police chief, we're voting against a confidence in him. So I'm just asking that tonight, when these two police officers brought forward, that you please consider voting for them. And I'm glad to see Alex Hottie coming back. He's worked in our office before. I thought he was an excellent police officer. We risk the risk of the safety of our community. When we don't hire enough police officers, we're short down to 7 police officers. And we're also working them too many hours. That really puts them at risk. So please consider voting yes on these 2 officers tonight and show your faith and trust in Chief Sanchez. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hubbards. Next would be number 10, Linda Burke.
Good evening, everyone. This is Linda Burke with the Greater East Mountain Chamber of Commerce. I have a number of items tonight. First of all, I would like to invite everyone to our February 18th Lunch and Learn series lunchtime meeting. The topic this year, or this month, will be developing leadership wisdom. We have an excellent speaker, Dr. Gregory Stebbins, and he is, I'm hearing a lot of background noise, sorry. He is the author of Manifesting Organizational Vitality. Also, excuse me, a little bit of sad news. The Single Action Shooting Society, which ordinarily holds End of Trail in our community each year, has decided this year to move the event to Indiana as a direct result of the restrictions in New Mexico and the inability to know what's coming down the road as far as being able to plan for something like that. So that's an unfortunate negative economic impact to our community, because we will not have those restaurants filled, hotels filled, and gasoline and Walmart and all of the other things that those visitors typically spend money on. But on to some better news. I'm glad to tell you that Santa Fe County and Bernalillo County have moved into the yellow zone, which means that our restaurants, as of tomorrow, are able to open for indoor dining at 24%. So I'm very hopeful that everyone will show their support for our local restaurants and businesses. And one other comment, I know things have been said in the past, but we utilize Zoom for our monthly meetings, and it's quite economical and quite effective. And it may help to eliminate some of the technical problems that you're experiencing and allow people to raise their hand when they want to be added to the public comment list. For us, it only costs $16 a month, so it is very, very affordable, and it adds a visual component. We'll also be continuing to work hard to support the local business and community prosperity. You'll soon start to see a GEM card, which is the local shop local card, that will become available at our retail stores throughout the region. And that's all I've got for tonight.
Thank you, Ms.
Lily,
Next, we have Jerry Powers, number 13.
Okay. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hello?
Mr. Mayor, oh yeah, okay, it looks like you muted caller 18, so thanks.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I want to comment about tonight's meeting. I want to say this is a step in the right direction. It's good to see that all of the members have been allowed to speak. They've been allowed to discuss and debate openly, which is the time-honored tradition and one of the fundamentals to democracy. And of course, four heads are always better than one. So I tend to believe that these decisions get made in a better fashion when they're aired out in the public and debated. The last meetings, of course, were the opposite of that, and I hope to never see that again. Hopefully this will be the new trend, the new normal toward openness and public debate. I want to make a comment on item B, the November 2nd meetings. It's always been the pattern with Edgewood that when there was a correction that had to be made in minutes, it got corrected. If you know something's wrong on those minutes, such as it was called out by the mayor after he was not the mayor, that all could be adjusted in there to say it was illegally called by the mayor and not by the governing body, and that all of the actions that were taken were illegal because it was an illegal meeting. That's a simple fix for item B, rather than just bringing them up in their current incorrect form over and over again. The other item I want to discuss or talk about is I have not yet seen, it's been almost 6 months since the election for commission manager, and that was an overwhelming result. 300% of normal turnout, a supermajority of voters voted for it, and it hasn't been discussed, brought up, mentioned on an agenda item since that happened almost 6 months ago. It was before the Local Election Act. That would have been completed, everything within 90 days. The statute requires that you proceed to organize under commission manager, and there's nothing been done on that. So I'd like to see an agenda item for the next meeting to discuss in the open how that's going to happen, what's going to happen so that the public can participate. and make their comments with regard to how it's happened. Those are my comments.
Thank you, Mr. Powers. That brings us to the end of public comment. Matters from council. Councilor Jaramillo.
Mr. Mayor, somebody called in late, caller 18. I don't know who it is, but there is a caller 18 now.
Caller 18, you're unmuted. Would you wish to speak in public comment? I guess the answer to that is no. Caller 18 just disappeared. Councilor Jaramillo.
Yes, I do have quite a few items here. I appreciate having this back on the agenda after several months here. So things have kind of been stacking up, but first off, I really thank the community members who have hung in there, and regardless of the meeting, frustrating meeting last week, or are here, or at least most here again to express your comments. Thank you also to Ms. Huppert for expressing your concerns, and I do take this very, very seriously, and I absolutely do back the blue. Very passionate about that. I have a responsibility to the community and to those community members who question the integrity of that particular candidate. The discussion at the meeting was that he was I'm getting feedback. Okay. Oh, I guess we have a caller 19 now. So as I was saying, I believe the motion was to the effect of further vetting, but like I said, there were many concerns about the character and, just being really cautious and careful of who our leaders are very important. And I have the responsibility to bring up those concerns and get answers for those concerns. And as well, as far as Chief Sanchez, I made it abundantly clear in my vote there that it was due to the violation of our policies. And, in this position, I know maybe it sometimes gets lost on community members such as yourself, but we do take an oath to uphold the Constitution and the laws and the statutes and the ordinances and the resolutions. And so when those things and procedurally are not done correctly, it's not something that we can just vote for because those decisions may be challenged. And so I made it abundantly clear that that was the reason why I had made those votes. So just wanted to clear up that for any community members that might be confused about that comment. Thank you also, Linda Burke, for the good news. I'm really sad to hear about Fast leaving, but glad that we're in the yellow and absolutely want to support our local business. So I'm glad we can even more now. As far as Karen Kaiser, I was also concerned about the legal bills, so that's something we can talk about in the December financial report. And okay, a community member has reached out about the status of the bridge. So some of these that I'm mentioning here tonight, guys, I was going to ask the clerk or deputy clerk. I know you voted against me being able to do that. So I'm going to go ahead and just mention them here so that Juan and Carla have the opportunity to, follow up on some of these concerns. So status of the bridge, a community member presented that the engineer said that the way it is right now, if we had a big flood, that it would wash out. So I was curious what our engineers had said about that. And then if we don't proceed with this project soon, it appears to me that we are out over $1 million. And so I just think that that needs to be moved up in priority and information and communication to the governing body so we know the status, so that we know what's happening and exactly by when it's happening, or if there's a different fiscal fiduciary responsibility that we have to this community to not lose out on $1 million. And the former Parks and Rec director's projects as well, he sent something about concerns that they would not be followed through on, and so that is very important. Many people, the previous committee, probably even the current Parks and Rec, have worked on these projects and worked so hard for the grants and the funding and everything that has happened to this point that we cannot just ignore that for a year or whatever time frame, and just because we don't have a Parks and Rec director. And that is another item that I asked during budget for an update on that, and have not received that yet. So I'm not sure why we're not hiring, but that's something that needs to be addressed as well, so that we do not lose out on this hard work that everyone from the past has already done for our community. I did talk about the road maintenance, and that is really important to me, but also the road criteria. So that had come up last year as well, and community members frequently ask us, how are you qualifying the roads? What is the criteria? And I think we were supposed to have a contract about what we want our future roads to look like, but we still, need to determine the criteria for ranking them and what they might need. Next, I did present a resolution for Coyote crossings for road maintenance, and I would like that on a future agenda. They have presented proof to me that their roads have been designated to the town in the past, and so I formed a resolution for them. It is still winter. I think it's important that there's snow removal, there's elderly there. It's just important that we withhold our duty to them, and so I'm asking for that. Asset management plan, I know this is something that Juan has been working on, and I would like an update on that. Commission manager, form of government, of course, I've been asking for this since the election, but definitely since October. We need to have this on the agenda as a discussion item to be able to determine the proper steps for operating under commission manager, districting, and town manager, and a myriad of other things that the statute requires. Next, I have legal invoices and the RFP, we already talked about that. Personnel matters. On the next agenda, I would like a closed session for personnel matters to discuss the performance evaluations. I haven't had an update on that, and of course, now that the former mayor is not technically, I'm not sure if Mayor Pro Tem you are handling those evaluations, but regardless of all of that, there's some things we do need to discuss as far as performance goes, and take a look at those evaluations. Next here, on the sound and video, I did want to echo what's already been stated about the feedback and everything, and I think we're in a little better situation here tonight, although there's been some issues, but it appears everyone could hear. But really, 80% of communication is nonverbal, right? So to me, it's just really important that I can see the faces of the public. They can see us. When they're on the phone, it's really difficult for them to know what caller they are, or maybe they were away when you called for them and they wanted to speak in public comment. So I think it's just important that we go to the video conferencing, okay? And that can stream for Leota's page. Leota doesn't even have to come and waste her time sitting there, or her staff. It just streams directly to Facebook. So I would ask again, since I've been asking since I think April of last year for this to be corrected. Okay, agenda items. I have sent emails with many, many requests for agenda items, more than what I've just put on my list here tonight. So Mayor Pro Tem, if you could please check back on my requests and get those on a future agenda, I would appreciate that. Operating resolution, as far as in-person electronics, this came up again when we were asked if we wanted our packets. And it just, reminded me again that that's something in our operating resolution that needs to change. We should be able to have a laptop with us at a meeting if we wish. We should be able to have a phone with us if we wish, as long as we are not speaking between the governing body members themselves. It's not a violation of open meeting, and that needs to be changed, as well as in-person closed sessions. In today's day and age, I've seen many governmental entities, they figure it out, right? They figure it out. They're able to give the governing body a link for the closed session and a link for the open meetings, and it all works out just fine. Or if you use Zoom, there's such a thing called breakout rooms, where you just go into the breakout room and you're alone with whoever you choose to be in that breakout room. So it's like you're, just all together without the public, okay? I did want to just, I guess, for the record, there was a lot of things that occurred last meeting, but I think the censure was a big thing that should be documented that occurred. And I know, I think you just need to be consistent in your application of principle. If you're going to demand that these November 2nd minutes be approved, and maybe with some edits, right, saying that there's, the mayor was no longer part of the governing body according to the judge, then we should also have minutes from last week. And so let's be consistent in our application of that. The resolution, I also presented a resolution in the past on partnering on water quality, such as the treatment plant, and I really would like to see that come forward just for discussion and a path forward as an alternative to spending the millions and millions and millions on a hostile takeover of EPCOR. So I think that is still important. And let's see if I had anything else. I think that pretty much covers it. So I yield the floor, Mayor Pro Tem. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Jaramillo. Councilor Abraham.
Okay, I would like to start out by saying thank you for taking a moment of recognition for the people who have recently passed away. Mr. Art Schwenka, I did not know him until I got assigned to the Estancia Basin Water Planning Committee. Having a lack of water experience and following up in Rita Loy's shoes, who had tons and tons of experience, I was kind of floundering. And Art took the time to explain some of the things that they were doing and how it affected things. And so I really appreciated his mentorship when I was in a position that was a little bit over my head. So the other thing also has to do with the Estancia Basin Water Planning Committee. I received an email from the board guy that works for Mr. Cog, and he has presented 3 times requests for payments to the town of Edgewood and has received no response. So I don't know what is holding up some of the payments. This isn't the first one I've heard that is not receiving their membership dues as we budgeted, and they should have had them back July 1st. So the next thing I would like to talk about is RFPs. We have RFPs, I know of at least, for the wastewater plant operator and legal fees. Both of those contracts have either expired or are expiring. And on December 23rd, Juan said in the minutes of that meeting that the town will be issuing an RFP for professional services. Yet I haven't seen anything or any discussion about that at all. So that also is something I have been putting on my request for agenda items that has been disregarded. So if we can get something going there, it would be really helpful. The other thing that I've been asking for is a 2021 operating resolution and the 2021 open meetings resolution. Both should have been passed at our first meeting in January of 2021. And so those need to be fleshed out and brought forward, and I can provide something if that would be helpful. Next, while looking through all of the minutes that have accumulated under consent agenda, I realized that the library board appointments for Kenny Adams and Willie Harris expired at the end of December. I saw on the November 24th minutes, they indicated that many, maybe all of the P&Z commissioners have expired terms. The Parks and Rec Advisory Board, I was speaking with them because something came up on a social media site that I'm part of called Nextdoor, people wanting a dog park. So I reached out to the Parks and Rec Advisory people to see what was going on. They told me they haven't met in over a year, and some of their terms may be expired. So I think we need to look at the terms of all of our advisory boards and see where do we need to appoint, where do we need to ask them to, if they're interested in still serving, what vacancies we may have, and how we can get those filled. I know at one time when we were having trouble seeking planning and zoning people, the previous mayor suggested we pay them. So we are now paying the P&Z department, and if their terms have expired, I think we might be in a little bit of hot water there. Next, I would like to talk about the library curbside pickup that's been suspended. I know I work often with my granddaughter in Albuquerque at the public libraries because, you know, they need stuff. They've been open for months, and I just would like to see us reestablish at least curbside pickup for our library. Districting is also something that I have asked for an agenda item on. We not only have to create districts, but we have to decide, do we want people to run by district, or do we want to have everybody run at large? But we need to make those decisions. We need to be able to discuss them. We need to hear from the public and see what their thoughts are. And then we need to make some adjustments. We need to be looking through our ordinances and see what do we need to change to make it compliant with the commission manager form of government. And I believe that looks like all that I have on my list. So thank you for providing the opportunity again to discuss concerns and things that people bring to us, and see if we can work out ways to resolve some of these things.
Thank you, Councilor Abraham. Councilor Holly. You are muted. There you go.
There you go. Let's see. I first wanted to start with a little update from the NCRTD. If you remember, I do represent Edgewood on the North Central Regional Transit District. And I've been working with them to try and get a demand service out here in our community for our citizenry. And they have agreed to try a pilot project out here. And so
Details are not set in stone yet, but I'll give you a little bit of an update. What the NCRTD is talking about at this time is a no-cost demand service within Edgewood, Moriarty, and Stanley. And the service would operate on Tuesdays and Thursdays between the hours of 6 a.m. and 6 p.m. with a 2-hour break between 11 and 1. Passengers would be required to call in to schedule their pickups, drop-offs, and returns no later than 5 p.m. the evening before the date of their request. And the service they are planning to start on Tuesday, March 2nd. So that's a little bit of a head up. As it gets closer to March, I'm sure I'll have finalized details to share with you. But wanted to give everybody a heads up about that. Share that information with people that you know that may need transportation, like to a doctor's appointment, even to go shopping, things like that in our area. The next thing I wanted to address was the letter written by our police officer, Amber Mares, and signed by all of our Edgewood police officers. And my comments are going to be a little bit lengthy, but I trust you'll bear with me, as I think this is very important. The governing body received a letter from our police officers, and it just really saddened me that our officers are so disheartened and discouraged by the inaction of this council that they had to write a letter to this body to bring our attention to the desperately inadequate staffing of our police department. I've heard from every member of this council state that, oh, I stand with Blue. Well, words mean nothing when it's not followed by action. I've also heard members of this council say, you have to listen to the people, listen to the people. Well, that means listening to and hearing our own town employees. The town of Edgewood has hired dedicated, responsible staff to serve our community. Some of those staff are department heads and supervisors tasked with managing their departments and personnel. I believe there has been too much micromanaging of town staff by this body. As I said last month, when a police officer applicant was recommended for hire, I have faith in the town's application, selection, and interview process. Members of our police department participated in the interview process for a new police officer. I trust their judgment that they've done their due diligence when checking backgrounds, references, and interviewing candidates for a position on our police force. Our officers have a vested interest in hiring someone they can count on to have their back when they put their lives on the line every day when they report for duty. And I want to just quote something from the letter that was sent to us. Here's the beginning of the quote. Since October, 7 officers have been tasked with maintaining shift coverage for the entire town of Edgewood, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, as it is our duty to the citizens of Edgewood to provide law enforcement services. And the author of this letter, Officer Mares, goes on to say, I myself have worked numerous 16-hour shifts without days off, and in one case, 17 days in a row. Due to the long hours without the benefit of rest or days off, our ability to perform our job is diminished, greatly increasing the chances of poor decision-making skills and delayed reactions due to exhaustion and inattention. With the exacting and often daunting skills law enforcement requires, it is a when, not if, situation that we ourselves or someone else is injured or even killed, end quote. Now, I'm not saying this body has to be a rubber stamp for every potential new hire. We always have an opportunity to question the applicants when they are brought before us for consideration. I do believe we should be more considerate and supportive of our staff's recommendations. After all, They know their jobs better than we do, and we hire them for their knowledge and expertise in their field. Finally, I shouldn't have to remind anyone here, but our duty as elected officials of Edgewood is to provide for the safety and welfare of our citizens. With an understaffed and overworked police force, we have neglected our number one priority. Thank you. I yield my time.
Thank you, Councilor Hawley. I was also going to comment on this letter, but I think that Councilor Hawley, your comments are well spoken, and I would like to ask that that this letter be put in the record for this evening's meeting and added to the notes, just to emphasize the feelings of our police force. And my feeling is also that there are many others in our community who are feeling the pressure, not only of short staff and long hours, but of many other things that have plagued our community. With regard to the rather long laundry list of items, I can address several. The first one, hopefully on a slightly lighter note, the dog park idea. I have been in conversations with several different members of our community who have expressed, shall we say, disgust at the dog owners who are not picking up after themselves in our park. And the discussion went further to, well, maybe we should have a dog park, and maybe that might not be a bad plan. I have asked the town clerk to look into what it would cost us for fencing and ground cover and benches to build a dog park. So, Councilor Abraham, your idea of a dog park, or the idea that was fielded to you in social media, has already got legs, so to speak. Curbside pickup for the library. I am waiting for notification from the governor's office on how we might proceed and reopen curbside library services. I am looking at the boards and trying to make some recommendations. I will bring something before the council shortly. As far as some of the other items, I'm going to look into this stuff and I will bring back some information. As you know, I was kind of thrown into this mix several months ago, and it takes a good bit of time to get a handle on everything that this governing body has going on and has had going on and continues to have going on. Hopefully I can get a handle on all of these bits and pieces and bring them forward. One other thing that I think that the council needs to think about and the public needs to think about is the Edgewood 7 Trail. There have been several requests to ask where we are with the Edgewood 7 Trail. And I would remind the council what the situation is there with the easements along Edgewood 7 and the necessity to acquire those easements. It might be time for councilors to go and have some conversations with members in the community and see what we might be able to negotiate. I'll leave it at that. There are lots and lots of other things going on with regard to people in our community and where we are with COVID. I don't have to mention the problems happening there.
In the yellow.
Yeah, Santa Fe County is now in the yellow, so we will be seeing things open up, and I will review, as I said, the governor's orders for opening things back up as we can. Hopefully, we will have some news tomorrow. With that, I would like to move on to action items. First action item is a discussion, consideration, and action on the recommendation to hire Daniel Rodriguez. Do I hear a motion?
I will move Mayor Pro Tem to hire Daniel Rodriguez as police officer for the town of Edgewood.
And I will second. Is there discussion?
Yes. Sherry's speaking, but she's on mute.
I have one question about training. I'm a little bit concerned about training. I would like to hear from Mr. Rodriguez as to what training does he think would be most helpful for us to provide, and then I would like to see how the chief plans on providing that training.
Mr. Rodriguez, are you there? Mr. Rodriguez, are you there?
Hey, Daniel. Sorry about that. I had to attend my daughter really quick there.
That's okay, sir. One of our counselors has some questions for you. Counselor?
Sure.
Yes, Mr. Rodriguez, I just had one question as to what kind of training do you feel like would be most helpful to help you be successful in the town of Edgewood? And then I just want to make sure that we can provide that training to you. So can you tell me what you are lacking previously?
Sure, yeah. Okay, yeah, I would say as far as training, just somebody that, is dedicated, just having, overall good teamwork, somebody that has, passion for their job and, has the best interest for somebody to, perform well, whatever department they're in. So I would say that's very important, good communication as well.
So is there any particular training classes that we need to make sure we can provide to you?
Let's see, I would say as far as the town, just learning the town, the new rules and regulations of the department, being Edgewood. So that I would say one of the things that would have been nice on our previous employer, from Santa Fe, not so much Laguna, but overall just a refresher of, a new department, pretty much what the FTO, training entails. So, but yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Not so much something specific, just a broad, yeah.
Okay. And then my next question is to the chief. Can we make sure we can provide all of these, being as shorthanded as we are?
Mayor, Counselor? Yes, we can. This will be taken care of, most of it, in the field training phase, which he will ride along with an officer for 2 weeks and then move on to an additional officer. And at that time, we'll determine whether he needs to continue on field training. If he's not up to par, he'll continue on field training until we feel, till the FTOs feel comfortable enough to release him on his own. But until that time, he will not be released, along with any hire.
Okay, thank you.
Councilor Jaramillo?
Yes, Mayor Pro Tem and Chief and Mr. Rodriguez, I have some various questions. As I mentioned earlier, I take this responsibility extremely seriously and absolutely do back the blue. It is something that I stand very strongly for. And I am, very disheartened to hear as well, the scenario with, a couple of officers had to be called out. Also in the National Guard, Officer Walker, who I believe has returned now. But there were a lot of things happening in this time frame that caused the department to be short. I did hear from the letter and read that they have been covering shifts and working a lot of overtime since October. And, that wasn't something that was ever brought to council in October. And we also, the meetings were canceled, not by me, in November and December, and one meeting in January. And so that probably could have played into the part of why the chief was unable to bring his concerns to council. But we are all good-hearted people as far as wanting to, provide the resources, provide the raises, provide whatever it is that they need. So I just ask the chief to keep us up to date. Don't let something go from October to February, or whatever it is that, whatever they need, we want to absolutely provide that. As far as, bringing up concerns from the public, that is something that is very important. I don't know why Councilor Holly wasn't worried about someone who objectifies women to that extent. But objectification of women and the concerns that the community brought up is extremely serious. And I did serve on the Moriarty Edgewood School Board for 8 years. As you can imagine, we had some issues. You guys probably remember with a coach, for example, and the treatment of women is just extremely important to protect. And so in learning a lot through Moriarty Edgewood School District, I understood that the vetting process is super important. And so that's why I think the motion was made on that. And I do not regret just asking the questions for the community and bringing up that tough subject, because of the character of our leaders is so important, and we have a duty for that, right? So that was in January. The very next meeting that we had, the chief did bring forward Mr. Rodriguez, and unfortunately, through no fault of mine or anybody on the governing body, that meeting, the sound again, having problems since last April, it's really sad that we had to cancel that meeting because of the lack of sound going to the public. And that absolutely was not the fault of council. Just because the sound was wrong at the first meeting that this candidate was brought forward is not meaning that nobody here backs the blue. I think you need to put that in perspective. We were given these candidates months ago, okay? I'm just very thankful that they are here, that people can hear now. We can vote on these matters. I did also want to say that long before this letter was written, I expressed my support of the candidate here tonight, and I did bring forward one concern. Well, actually, I shared the concerns of the community members. I feel I have a duty to do through email. One of them, Mr. Rodriguez, was about your work history. And so I would like you to speak to that just a little bit. There's concern about gaps, maybe the business you started and the consistency and the loyalty. And so that's my question tonight, in that, as far back as at least 2 weeks ago, I expressed my support for you to the chief, to Sergeant Lopato, and to our clerk as well. So the fears should have been allayed about anything about that, but again, I still have that question for the committee members who have the question about your work history. You could address that, please. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. My work history, I started getting into like the investigative kind of field, private investigations. I've been doing that for about almost 7 years now. Did a little bit of time with the National Guard. And then I started law enforcement with Santa Fe PD. And then due to the lack of training that I was receiving there, that's when I decided to part ways with the department and ended up going back to private investigation work. And then I went to Laguna PD. The only reason I left Laguna PD was I was trying to stay as a reserve officer, but I had started my own business, and I was trying to do that part-time on the side on my days off, but I started getting a lot busier with it. I've always been curious about, just starting, a business and get that going, and so that kept me pretty busy, and with the whole, pandemic, so I started, the business started going, a little slower, so that's when I decided to just go to law enforcement and just make it a career, a permanent career, and just do the videography and all that whenever I have time, spare time for it. So that's pretty much what brought me on to with Edgewood. Never applied with Edgewood before. I was actually doing a PI case down in Torrance County, and then on the way back to Albuquerque, I actually just looking around as I'm driving through the town. I thought, well, I've never applied at Edgewood, so I passed the town sign. So that's what prompted me to apply. And I spoke with, I believe it was Nina, and she told me they had just posted the application online the day before, I think it was, and that's when I had applied the day after. And she just stated that they were looking for lateral officers. So it's always been something I've been wanting to do. Videography's always been like a hobby of mine. So I just figured for the first time ever I wanted to kind of do it, full time, but it's more of a hobby / part-time gig. So.
Well, thank you for that. And I just wanted to mention on that concern that we hope that you stay and you get the training you need. And are loyal to Edgewood. I think you will absolutely enjoy it here. We do have a great team. We do. The sergeants are very strong.
Oh, yeah.
Chief is already hitting the ground running. So I think that you're coming into a great environment. Absolutely.
Thank you. Yeah, I truly believe that. Yeah, everybody's been so good to me, and everything was very efficient and very professional. So I'm glad that I'm getting the opportunity from you guys to interview.
Are there any more comments or questions?
This is Counselor Holly. I think all my questions have been answered. I was just curious as to why Mr. Rodriguez was interested in coming to Edgewood.
I would see Edgewood. I haven't been to Edgewood too many times. When I started as a private investigator, I did do some cases throughout the town, but it was many years ago. So I can't say that I'm too familiar with it. It was more of when I was driving through back to Albuquerque from Torrance County, I just glancing over to the right, just looking at the town. That's what kind of hit my mind. I'm like, what? I wonder if they're hiring. It's just something that kind of out of the blue. And when I got home, the application was literally right there. So I'm like, let me go ahead and apply. And I haven't heard good things about Edgewood in the past from different departments throughout the years, but I've never bothered to really look into it and really take the time to apply. So yeah.
Well, we're glad you checked us out. Thank you.
Yeah, me too.
If there are no more questions or comments, I will call for the vote. Counselor Abraham.
Aye.
Counselor Jaramillo.
Aye.
Counselor Holly.
Aye.
And I also vote aye. Welcome aboard. Glad to have you, Mr. Rodriguez.
We would like to see you face them tonight.
No, you will soon, hopefully. Very soon. Me too.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate that. You too, sir. Thank you, guys.
Next item, discussion, consideration, and action on the recommendation to hire Alex Haney. I probably butchered his last name. Hogney?
For the second time.
For the second time.
For the second time.
Mayor Pro Tem, I make the motion to hire Alex Honey as police officer for the town of Edgewood.
I'll second.
Oh, okay, we have a motion and a second. Do we have discussion?
Yes, I would like to hear from Mr. Alex Honey and say, I would just have a question as to what made you come back?
Yeah. Can everyone hear?
You're breaking up kind of badly. Try again.
Can everyone hear me okay?
Yes.
Now we can.
Okay, yeah. So I left the Albuquerque Police Department. I served 2.5 years with the Edgewood Police Department. After leaving, I learned quickly it was the wrong decision. So I grew up in the town of Edgewood as well my entire life, and I know that I have a lot greater impact helping, serving the community that I grew up in. So I'm just, I want to thank the chief, Chief Sanchez and the sergeants, and of course you guys, for allowing me to even test and to come back. I know I'm facing the challenges of, starting over probation and stuff like that, but I'm more than happy to do that, just to come back and work in the community that I know I belong in. So I greatly appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you. I appreciate you coming back and appreciating home.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Councilor Jaramillo.
Yes, Mayor Pro Tem and Officer Honey, I just wanted to say, just express to you the big sigh of relief and thankfulness I had when I saw your name. So I have been in contact with, with the problems just here recently after learning about them on the shortages and things, and being just really concerned about this town of Edgewood police officers need to have backup on those calls, and our schedule needs to be, filled and allow them to have time with their family. And I know that you were excellent. I know that you were recognized in the town, and I really feel like you can be such a great leader. And I just cannot express enough how thankful I am to see and that you are returning. So, welcome back.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate that.
And this is Councilor Holly. I can echo those remarks. We're happy to have you back.
Thank you so much.
And I think we probably should proceed. We have a motion and a second. How will we vote? Councilor Abraham.
Aye.
Councilor Holly.
Aye.
Councilor Jaramillo.
Aye.
And I as well vote aye. Welcome back, Alex.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate it.
Mr. Mayor, I have a quick question. How many officers are we still down? And is there a process to help us get up to the amount we need? I know in the past we have provided increased salaries or whatever we need to do to attract the best candidates. That is still something that's important to me. Edgewood is one of the, makes the safest town in New Mexico list almost every year. And I want to make sure that we continue that. I want these police officers to know that while they may be feeling we haven't supported them, that is not a fact. We provide everything we can to attract and build a good police force. And so I think maybe during the budgeting process we need to look at things again, which also brings up something about the pay plan. That was supposed to be something that was re-looked at again too. So I think when the budgeting process comes, we need to look at what can we do to continue to attract the best candidates.
If I could address that, Mayor. And
Chief, go right ahead.
Councilor Jaramillo, let me address yours real quick. The reason you didn't hear anything back then, we were getting applications, but they didn't fit the criteria I felt that Edgewood deserved. That's why they never came to you. We did have applicants and they were rejected. We've rejected several. I just want you to know that I would never bring anybody to you or to our department. And I say our department because it's not mine, it's ours. It's yours, it's mine, it's the officers that work with me. I would never bring anybody that would bring disrespect to the town, to anybody here on this council or anybody in this town. I have a 28-year career. I am a certified background investigator, and I would, I'm just bringing that out to you to know that. I would challenge all of you to come down to the police department, sit down, talk, have a cup of coffee, and maybe we can talk some of this stuff out. Councilor Abraham, there are, and you know this as well as I do, due to COVID, I haven't stopped the training, but of course it's been delayed. We have been putting on a few classes here and there within the department. We've been doing them via Zoom, but as you know, a lot of these require hands-on training, and until that comes up again, hopefully now that we're starting to see some openings, that will start again. But I have been taking what the officers want and need for this department, as long as it fits the goals that I see this department needs, that's where we're going. I've allowed them to make the decisions on how the department's run. Of course, I have the final decision, but that's where I'm headed at this point. And
Well, I appreciate your comments, Chief. I just want you to make sure that, I just want to reassure you that we do want to do whatever is necessary to have the best police force possible.
And I totally agree. I would, like I said, we've gotten several applicants and they've been rejected because I would never allow that to you, to me, to the people, men and women that work for me. So I just want to give you that reassurance. And like I said, I would like to.
We were all very concerned when we received the letter today. You know, I just want to make sure that you guys all know we support the police department. I support the police department 100%, and getting the needs that you have met is one of the top priorities of this town. So if you have needs, please make sure that they're brought to our attention.
Yes, ma'am. And I can tell you this. They were all going to watch the call tonight, so whatever you're saying, they're hearing directly from you.
Okay, thank you.
Moving on, discussion, consideration, and action on the approval of the financials for the month of December 2020. Do I hear a motion?
I move to approve the financials for the month of December 2020.
Do I hear a second?
Second with discussion, I have some questions.
Discussion.
Okay, on page number 3, we spent $1,074.60 under finance and administration with no description, and you, on this particular report, you can't even read who the vendors are on most of them. So I don't even know who we paid that to.
Yeah, it is cut off on that side. It looks like the printer moved things over a notch.
We'll have to bring it back.
Well, the suggestion from the deputy clerk is to bring it back.
Because you really can't read.
You really can't read it.
Right.
That's unfortunate.
We'll put it on the next
Right.
agenda.
Councillor Jaramillo, do you have a comment?
Wait.
Okay. I thought we were moving on here.
The other item that's really, really hard to see is on page 4, where we bought trucks. We bought $64,000 worth of trucks for the police department from who?
Somebody Inc.
Yes.
Again, I would recommend that we ask the clerk treasurer to bring this back at our next meeting. And I would go ahead, Councilor Jaramillo, if Councilor Abraham, you're finished.
I am finished.
Okay, thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Just one thing to add here. I had requested the payroll registers and for December as well. And so just if I could get those prior to the next time we address this, that would be great. Thank you.
So we have a motion and a second. I think we need to vote on that motion and second, and I will go ahead and ask for that vote. Councilor Holly?
Well, I guess I will vote nay since we need more information.
And Councilor Jaramillo?
Nay.
That's 2. Councilor Abraham? Councilor Abraham, you're muted.
Nay.
That's 3 votes nay. I vote nay as well, and will request that this be brought back to our next council meeting.
Thank you.
Next on the agenda, we have a public hearing. This is a quasi-judicial public hearing. And because of that, I will need to read through the procedural guidelines. This agenda item, this public hearing, is a quasi-judicial hearing on the application of Valley View Christian Church for a zone change of 1 lot from R1 residential to 1 acre lot to SU. Special use. It is tract A-B-R, Township 10 North, Range 7 East, Section 15 of 4.94 acres, aka 170, New Mexico 344 NMPM, Town of Edgewood, Santa Fe, New Mexico. I request that certification of that this public notice of hearing has been posted as required.
It has.
It has. This case is being heard under the provisions required by the New Mexico Court of Appeals, intended to protect the rights of all parties to the proceedings. Requirements include the identification of all parties and their witnesses and the swearing in of all parties giving testimony. The affected parties will have the right to cross-examine persons giving testimony. I would like to ask the governing member or the governing body members that they have no conflicts of interest or ex parte contacts in this matter. Councilor Holly?
I so affirm.
You have no conflicts of interest, nor
I
have
have no
had
conflict
any.
of interest nor ex parte communication in this matter.
Thank you. Councilor Jaramillo?
I have not had ex parte communication in this matter, and I do not have a conflict of interest.
Thank you, Councilor Jaramillo. Councilor Abraham?
I have no conflict of interest on this matter, and I have had no ex parte communication.
And I also affirm no conflict of interest, nor have I had any ex parte communication. The concern is that this hearing be fair in form and substance as well as appearance. Therefore, I would like to ask if there is anyone present who objects to the participation of any member of the governing body in these proceedings. Please unmute. Let's hear if there's anybody who is against us participating. I hear no objections. All persons wishing to give testimony in this hearing, please rise and be sworn at this time. Unfortunately, we can't see you on the telephone, but people who will be testifying, we will have to identify you and verify that you've been sworn. So, everybody, does everyone swear that the testimony they are about to give is the truth and that they will answer truthfully in this matter? Yes, I do. Is there anyone from the public who can identify themselves currently? We have, all the lines are open. If you can speak, please do so. And I need to identify these persons as to the side of this discussion that they wish to be on, whether they are proponents of this zone change or opponents, if you wish to speak.
Mayor Pro Tem, you are breaking up some.
Okay, I will say, well, that's in part because we have everything unmuted, all of the callers. Are there any callers who wish to speak to this, either as an opponent or a proponent of this hearing?
This is Paul King from Valley View Church. I've been listening to the meeting, and I can answer questions if any of the counselors have questions at this time, or any of the general public.
Okay, and okay, I do not know which caller you are, so
15.
Yeah, oh, 15. You are caller 15. Okay, and you are a proponent of this.
He's the applicant.
And he is the applicant. Okay.
Yes, I am.
Is there anyone else who wishes to speak to this? Hearing no one, I will now open the testimony to the staff report. That would be Ms. Mortensen.
So the discussion and analysis of this, the church wanted a new sign, which prompted the discussion that they were still zoned residential, and that's how we catch a lot of these things. So staff encouraged the Valley View Christian Church to apply for a zone change from R1 to SU so they could come into compliance. Churches are listed under B, designated uses, number 8, in the Town of Edgewood zoning ordinance 2018-08, section 25, SU, special use. The church is located off New Mexico 344 and Christian Way. The property has established driveways and plenty of room for emergency vehicles. The purpose of zone change is to ensure the church is zoned properly. The Treatment Advisory Committee did not meet on this, as it is already an established church with adequate access and plenty of turning on space for emergency vehicles.
Is everything in order with the documentation, and has everything been filed timely in this matter?
Yes, it has.
At this time, if the applicant wishes to speak to this, we will hear from the applicant, or any questions you may have of us.
I just appreciate your consideration. As was stated by Tanya, we are going to do some landscaping to the west side of the church, just to make it much more presentable and attractive in the community. And that does include a new sign. And so we realized that when there was some zoning done, as Edgewood expanded, it was kind of a broad brush of R1, even though the church has been in existence and the building has been there since 1994. So before we proceeded, we felt it necessary to have the proper zoning so we could comply with any requirements that the city might have.
Thank you, Mr. King. I heard no proponents other than the applicant, and I heard no opponents. So, hearing neither, I think we proceed with the final staff report and the recommendations, since there is nobody to testify and no cross-examination will occur.
Okay. Special use zoning makes sense for this property because it is an established church, and the majority of the churches in Edgewood are zoned SU, special use. The Planning and Zoning Commission held a quasi-judicial public hearing on November 24th, 2020, and recommends the zone change to the governing body for consideration. Staff encourages zone change and recommends approval.
if the applicant has any closing summary statement, now would be the appropriate time for that. Mr. King, if you don't have any further statement, we can move forward. That would be your
I have
choice.
nothing more.
Thank you, Mr. King. So that closes the public hearing, and now the council may discuss and deliberate on this zone change. Councilor Jaramillo.
Yes, Mayor Pro Tem, I just, point of order, I thought that the colors were muted, for a majority of the time, so I'm just not certain that no one wants to speak to this.
Councilor, we had the entire bank wide open for comment whilst we were asking for proponents and opponents, and I heard no one speak, so I don't know that there was anybody out there, but the lines were wide open, and I heard.
Okay. I just thought that was for the testifying piece.
Well, that would be someone who wants to speak to it as a proponent, or someone who would speak against it as an opponent. I heard neither.
Okay. Just when you asked about proponents and opponents, they were muted, and I know that you unmuted during the part where you asked if anyone wanted to be sworn in. Anyways, I just want to make sure that if anybody wanted to speak, that they can.
To testify, we would have to open it up and ask them to be sworn in and have them state whether they are an opponent or a proponent. And I heard no one step up.
Okay, thank you. It looks like they're unmuted now.
Once again, I hear no one speaking to this issue. So the procedure here would be that I will call for a motion, and we will proceed. So do I hear a motion?
I will make a motion. Do I need to read the thing or just to approve?
That would be a correct way to state the motion. Yes, Councilor.
Okay, so I make a motion to approve Valley View Christian Church application for a zone change of one lot from R1 residential 1 acre lot special use. Tract AZR T10N R7E SEC section 15 of 4.94 acres, aka 170 New Mexico 344, NMPM, Town of Edgewood, Santa Fe County, New Mexico.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
I think we got 2 seconds. Who wants to? We had 2 seconds. We had Councilor Abraham and Councilor Holly.
Abraham, second.
Okay, I'll go with that. Councilor Holly, how do you vote on this?
Aye.
Councilor Jaramillo.
Aye.
Councilor Abraham.
Aye.
And I as well vote aye. The motion carries. The public hearing is now completed. The lot is now designated as special use. Thank you, Council. Next on the agenda is a public hearing, a quasi-judicial, on the application of Brandon, and I'm going to butcher your name, I'm sorry, Jahasi, for a zone change of 5 lots. 1 from R2 and 4 from R1 residential to agricultural. This is tract A2, Town 10 North, Range 8 East, Section 7 of 35 acres, AKA, that was Mr. Gahasi. Unfortunately, I think you have some background noise going on back there. Let me finish with the designation once again. Let's see, 35 acres, AKA 420 Bassett Boulevard, and I don't know what TR is. TRB? Tract B. Town 10 North, Range 8 East, Section 7 of 51.69 acres, AKA 315 East Venus Road, and Tract C, 10 North, Range 8 East, Section 7 of 40 acres, aka 329 East Venus Road, and Tract A1, Town 10 North, Range 8 East, Section 7, aka 349 East Venus Road, and Tract N2, NW4, SE4, Town 10 North, Range 7 East, Section 12, aka 0 Rattlesnake Run, NPM, Town of Edgewood, Santa Fe County, New Mexico. Once again, this public hearing is a quasi-judicial procedure, and I request that certification that public notice of this hearing has been posted as required.
It has.
It has. This case is being heard under the provisions required by the New Mexico Court of Appeals intended to protect the rights of all parties to the proceedings. Requirements include the identification of all parties and their witnesses and the swearing in of all parties giving testimony. The affected parties will have the right to cross-examine persons giving testimony. I need to now confirm that there is no conflict of interest or ex parte contacts with each governing member or governing body member. Councilor Abraham.
I have no conflict of interest and have had no ex parte communication.
Councilor Jaramillo.
I have had no ex parte communication and I have no conflict of interest in this matter.
Councilor Hawley.
I have no conflict of interest or ex parte communication in this matter.
And I, as well, confirm that I have no conflicts of interest, nor have had any ex parte communication in this matter. The concern is that this hearing be fair in form and substance as well as appearance. Therefore, I would like to ask if there is anyone present who objects to the participation of any member of the governing body in these proceedings.
Make a master plan area that was annexed.
If, excuse me, but
No, it was,
I think it's Ray.
You're not muted.
we have unmuted to ask if there is anyone who objects to any member of the governing body hearing this issue. Hearing no objections, we will continue. All persons wishing to give testimony in this hearing, please rise and be sworn at this time. Callers, right now would be the time to speak up and say if you have any reason to be an opponent or a proponent of this matter.
I have a
I heard someone with a question. Right now I need to ask. There's an awful lot of background noise.
It's caller 4 with a question.
Not coming from me, but my name is Karen Kaiser. I just had a question when you reach the portion where the public can ask a question.
You have to identify if you're going to do it now.
If you are going to speak in this matter, you have to identify whether you are a proponent or an opponent of this matter.
As a public, I believe I'm allowed to have a question as a matter of the public.
Yeah, we can certainly hear you. It is.
If I had to make, John Abrams, I'll be a proponent. I don't oppose the project. My question is specifically for you. So would you like me to ask it now?
No.
That would be unfortunately inappropriate at this particular part of this process.
But we'll call
Okay.
on
But we will call on
No
you.
way.
Is there anyone else who wishes to speak to this and wishes to be sworn in?
Yes,
And who?
this is Marlene Farley.
Marlene Farley. Are you a proponent or an opponent of this matter?
Opponent.
An opponent.
Yes.
Is there anyone else who wishes to speak to this matter?
Did I hear Ray? Seegers? Mr. Seegers?
No.
Okay.
Mr. Jahasi should though.
Well, Mr. Jahasi is the applicant, so he has a place in the lineup here. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak in this matter as a proponent or an opponent of this matter? Hearing none, please, if you would, mute so that we don't have interference, and we will move forward. We move forward now with the staff report, an overview, and a brief history of the matter. Ms. Mortensen.
The technical advisory committee was unable to meet on this one due to COVID. The reason for the proposed
One moment. Hold on. We're getting some horrifyingly bad echo here.
Okay, I am so sorry to interrupt you, Ms. Morrison. I'm just wondering if you needed to be sworn in for this part.
She does.
We do need to swear in, yes. My bad on that. Thank you, Counselor. All persons wishing to give testimony in this hearing, please rise and be sworn in at this time. You swear that you will tell the truth in this matter and represent the matter to the best of your abilities.
I do.
Thank you. All members being duly sworn, we now proceed. My bad. One more time.
The technical advisory committee was unable to meet due to COVID-19. The reason for the proposed motion is the applicant is planning on growing a vineyard. Located off, that's wrong. Located off of Venus and off of Bassett Boulevard and off of Rattlesnake Run. Agricultural zoning, the purpose of the agricultural district are to protect and promote the continuation of agricultural activities in areas where they are already established. To permit limited exceptions, only agricultural land uses and activities, and to separate agricultural land uses and activities from incompatible residential, commercial, and industrial development and public facilities. So that's just blurb from agricultural.
Okay. The status of the application, was all documentation submitted in a timely manner?
Yes, it was.
Okay. We move on. The applicant can speak to this issue. And if you would, Mr. Jahasi?
Sure. It's
Giassi.
Thank you.
My bad.
Yeah, no problem.
Sorry.
No worries. I know it's a tough one. I appreciate you giving me the opportunity to speak about the plans that we have for our property there in Edgewood. We are planning to build a vineyard and hope that it can become somewhat of a centerpiece or a staple in the Edgewood community. I intend to build our single family home out there as well, so we're going to live and grow grapes out there. And one of my plans is actually to get the community involved during harvest season
see who wants to come out, help volunteer, cut grapes. Maybe we make a little line there on the side. And I'm even planning on getting involved with the schools, maybe with EVCA and South Mountain, to see if I can teach some viticulture or horticulture classes there on my farm. The majority of my plans revolve around the grapes, but we also will have between 700 and 1,000 trees out there of different varieties. We'll have apples, pecans, different conifers, etc. So a good opportunity for the community to come and learn some of the horticulture and agricultural opportunities that we have in the town of Edgewood. Thank you. Thank you. Does staff have any question for the applicant?
No, I do not.
Any person at this time who has been sworn may now cross-examine the applicant. And I believe we had Karen Kaiser. I think she was 7.
Yes, actually, my question was for you, Mr. Abrams. I seem to remember several months back you speaking of building a vineyard. I didn't dig back into the minutes, but do you remember you speaking during your counselor comments that you were going to build a vineyard?
I have been growing grapes, but that is immaterial in our discussion this evening.
It just seemed to me, it's the only vineyard I've heard of when I read of this applicant, other than you speaking of your vineyard. And I didn't know if you would be in competition with this applicant or if it was in fact a possible conflict. And that was my question.
No. I'm sorry that you may have. The scale here is quite considerably different. My small acreage would not be any competition whatsoever, nor would I be in competition.
Well, thank you for explaining it. When I read and heard vineyard, I kind of assumed it was the same vineyard that you were involved in. But it sounds like an exciting project for the town to have pecan trees and apples and so forth. Anyway, thank you for answering my question.
You're quite welcome. We don't really have any other proponents. We have an opponent, and I only got your first name, Marlene.
I don't know what number.
I don't know what number you were, Marlene, so if you could speak now, that would be appropriate.
I would like to know where he's getting his water from. Okay, thank you.
Sure. Hi, Mrs. Farley. Hope you're doing well. So currently there's 2 wells already drilled onto the property. One's an irrigation well, one's a residential well.
One moment, Mr. Yahasi. One moment.
Sure.
The caller who identified herself as an opponent, we need to get, certainly her full name.
I have her full name.
Okay, and whether she has been sworn or not.
Okay, and
if she's going to offer testimony.
Ms. Farley, are you still?
Yes.
Okay, and you have been sworn correctly?
No. Oh, I was sworn in earlier.
Yes. Okay.
Yes.
We needed to make sure that was verified. You have asked the applicant with regard to water.
Yes.
Mr. Jihasi?
Oh.
Yes. So, Mrs. Farley, there are 2 wells on the property already. One's irrigation, one's residential. I currently own the water rights for 60 acre-feet per annum for all 160 acres there on that southeast tract. And I spent many time with the state engineer's office to make sure that the amount of water rights that was received would not affect any of the surrounding wells. And 60 acre-feet is not that much water. You shouldn't, if at all, notice a decrease in your well supply there from across the road.
So that's what I was most interested in, was the water level.
Yeah, no, man, you shouldn't have any issues, and if you have any, just come over and see me, and we can hash it out.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Because we have had no other opponents, I believe we move on to the final staff report. Ms. Mortensen.
Staff met with Mr. Giuhassi where he explained his plan to have a vineyard on the property off of Bassett Boulevard and Venus Road, and also raise, we believe, cattle on the property off of Rattlesnake Run. Mr. Giuhassi provided a site plan that is included in your packet. He also has been in contact with the state engineer's office for any wells that are on the property and may be drilled possibly on the property. Staff has heard from many residents in the area who are concerned about the zone change. Once we explain the change from residential to agricultural and why, then the abutters are not as concerned. The zone change also reflects the wish to keep Edgewood rural as stated in the Town of Edgewood Comprehensive Land Use Plan. The Planning and Zoning Commission held a coordinated meeting on November 24th, 2020, and recommended this zone change to the governing body for consideration. Staff recommends approval of this zone change.
At this time, the applicant may cross-examine the staff. If you have any questions for the staff, Mr. Giuhassi?
Just for you, Mr. Abrams, is what kind of grapes are you growing?
They're a hybrid Pinot Noir.
Oh, very nice. Well, I very much look forward to trying some of yours, and hopefully you can try some of mine soon.
We'll trade starts hopefully here in the not too far distant future. That would be fun.
Yes, sir. No further questions for me, sir.
Thank you. At this time, we will close the public hearing.
Mayor Pro Tem?
Yes.
There is an opponent, and does that opponent have any questions
yes,
of the staff?
Right. I have to ask that. Ms. Farley, you are an opponent. Do you have any questions of staff? Ms. Farley?
Yes.
Do you have any questions of staff at this time?
No, I was mostly interested in the water, if it was going to affect our wells in this area.
Okay.
Mayor Pro Tem, one final thing. Does Ms. Farley, as an opponent, intend to offer any testimony?
Ms. Farley, do you intend to offer any testimony at this time?
No, that I was just interested in where how his water was coming and what, if it would affect our well.
Okay, thank you very much. Now,
you're welcome.
Thank you very much. Now, we will close the public hearing and hear from the commission, well, actually from the council, and I will ask for a motion in this matter.
Can I ask a question first, or do we need to make the motion first?
Form is asking questions after the motion and second has been made, but
Okay.
sure.
I just have a question, Ms. Mortensen. You mentioned that the TAC committee did not meet. Did all the members of the TAC committee review this and give you feedback?
Yes, Raleigh from Santa Fe County Fire reviewed it and didn't have any problems. There's plenty of access off of different areas, so there was no problem there.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Can I make a motion that we approve the application for Mr. Gaihasi for a zone change of 5 lots, 4 from residential R1, 1 from residential R2, agricultural, to agricultural, tract A2, Township 10 North, Range 8 East, Section 7 of 35 acres, aka 420 Bassett Boulevard, and tract B, Township 10 North, Range 8 East, Section 7 of 51.69 acres, aka 315 East Venus Road, and tract C, Township 10 North, Range 8E, Section 7 of 40 acres, aka 329 East Venus Road, and tract A-1, Township 10 North, Range 8 East, Section 7, aka 349 East Venus Road, and tract N2-Northwest 4-Southeast 4, Township 10 North, Range 7 East, Section 12, all aka 0 Rattlesnake Run, NMPM, Town of Edgewood, Santa Fe County, New Mexico.
Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
I have a motion and second. Is there any further discussion? Hearing no further Councilor Jaramillo.
I just wanted to ask Ms. Mortensen if you had looked at how this would impact the neighbor's water.
No, that is something that the state engineering office takes care of. I don't have any expertise in that, and Mr. Duhosny has been in contact with them.
Okay.
If that's questions about water, I refer to the applicant for that, because I don't have any of that.
Okay. So I just heard him state that there wouldn't be an impact to the neighbor, and so I was just wondering if that was your understanding as well.
That is my understanding as well, that there wouldn't be any impact. There's a residential well, and then another well for his vineyard, and I believe it's not going to use, a vineyard doesn't use that much water.
Okay. And is this going to be a business where people would be coming in and out of? Or just the actual manufacturing, but without visitors?
Mr. Duhosny, would you like to answer?
Sure, yeah, I can speak to that, Counselor. So as of right now, my plan is to simply grow the grapes and sell them to a local vintner or a winery. So I don't anticipate making much wine. So the only visitors at this point would typically be for volunteers cutting grapes, harvesting, etc. However, we do have plans down the road to operate the vineyard as a form of wedding venue, so we can have weddings out there on the property down the road.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Let's see, I also wanted to find out exactly, this is a long description here, so is the home is gonna remain on residential, that's correct? And then how many acres are you moving to agricultural?
The home will move to agricultural as well, because we anticipate growing grapes on the plot that the home will be built on. So that it's a total of 180 acres, and we intend to use all of it at some point for agricultural purposes. It'll just take us a little bit of time to get there.
Okay, and are you a new owner of this land?
So I've owned 90 acres for over 2 years now, and the other 90 we just bought in January. The 90 acres that butts up to the 70.
Okay. And then Ms. Mortensen, I'm curious about the history of why it was zoned residential in the first place and not agricultural.
I am not sure on that one. That was done long before I came around. There was a lot of areas out here I've noticed that were like big acres of land that were zoned residential. And I imagine that when the town was first incorporated and they were annexing in, they had a lot of development dreams in mind for a lot of 1 acre lots for housing subdivisions, is my guess. And I think that's why we have so much R1 here.
Okay, thank you both.
Okay, we have a motion to approve the application of Brandon G. Hasse for a zone change of 5 lots, 1 from R2, 4 from R1 to agricultural. Tract A2, Township 10 North, Range 8 East, Section 7 of 35 acres, aka 420 Bassett Boulevard, and Township, TRB, Tract B, Township 10 North, Range 8 East, Section 7 of 51.69 acres, aka 315 Venus Road, and Tract C, Township 10 North, Range 8 East, Section 7 of 40 acres, aka 329 East Venus Road, and Tract A1, Township 10 North, Range 8 East, Section 7, aka 349 East Venus Road, and Tract N2, NW4, SE4, Township 10 North, Range 7 East, Section 12, aka 0 Rattlesnake Run, NPM, Town of Edgewood, Santa Fe County, New Mexico. We have a motion. That would be the motion, and a second. I will now call for the vote. Councilor Hawley.
Aye.
Councilor Jaramillo.
Aye.
Councilor Abraham.
Aye.
And I as well vote aye. Thank you, Council.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you.
You are quite
Appreciate
welcome.
that. Thank you very much. Have a great one.
Take care now. That changes the designated lots to from residential to agricultural, and the zone map should be changed at our next meeting. Ms. Mortensen, if you would, thank you for both matters. We now go to calendar review. We have an upcoming meeting on February 21st? No, I can't see from here. 24th. Our next council meeting will be February 24th. Other than that, I don't have any other items to report for calendar review, and I will call for an adjournment.
I have a quick discussion. Are we going to have a closed session there, or are we going to wait until after the March 10th meeting when we have the public hearing?
I'm going to defer that one to council, but I don't have anything planned, if that's what you're asking.
Okay.
Do I hear a motion
Closed session
to?
for what?
Yeah, closed session. I don't.
For what in particular, Counselor?
To discuss the sale of town hall. After, do we need to wait until after the public hearing?
You don't necessarily have to. It probably would be beneficial after you well, you may or may not need it. If you approve the ordinance, the sale ordinance, then there really wouldn't be a need for a closed session or executive session. If you do not approve it, then you may consider whether you want to have one or not. But it would be, I would say you don't need it at the next session. At the next, on the 24th.
My question is, we still have not discussed the offers, so if we have not discussed the offers, how are we going to know how to vote on that ordinance?
Well, you have, essentially, you have one, you have an offer and a contract that has been signed contingent upon approval of an ordinance. If that is not approved, then the contract essentially falls through. The contract then no longer is, it would be valid. And if you have competing interests in it, my understanding of my sense of what the council was getting at is probably trying to get as much as it could for the old town hall. That's certainly one important thing. The other thing could be the type of development, but having said that, and that there appears to be an interest, if you are going to go through and if you are looking at competing bids, then what you're going to have to ultimately do is have the property placed for at public, like essentially at a public sale, and you would have it go to the highest bidder who complies with the terms that you, the governing body, determine they have to comply with.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
I move to adjourn.
Second? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. We're adjourned. Thank you, council.